Yo, yo, what it do, what it do? It's your boy L Quoting, building. I'm checking with y'all. Yeah, I came across this article, this really dope article about Vikings. I don't know how many of y'all are like Viking fans, but I know ever since Game of Thrones, um, I want to say Game of Thrones, and then after the last Kingdom, my boy Uhtred. I know Vikings came across the joint. Um, Vikings for Hella, I think. They got a new joint out, but I know that when it first came out, I believe I had caught it, and I was pretty impressed. Just to kind of peep how the Vikings move and operated, especially during that time frame. But this article I came across is basically six things you might not know about Vikings regarding some interesting facts. And so I was like, you know what, let me peek this joint and see what it's talking about. So the first fact was in reference to not all Vikings came from Scandinavia. So it kind of goes into Sweden, Norway, and Denmark received most of the attention regarding Viking history, but a group of warriors known as the Osilians lived on a large island called Osel, known as a Saaremaa today. The island is located off Estonia's coast in the Baltic Sea. According to the 13th century Estonian documents, Osilians built merchant ships and warships that could carry about 30 men each. It goes more into that particular fact. 2008 workers inadvertently discovered a burial ground in the town of Sami that included human remains, along with swords, spears, knives, axes, and other weapons. Archaeologists excavated the site and later a second site nearby and found the remains of two Swedish ships dating to about 750 CE. One ship contained neatly ordered remains, and the other more haphazard, indicating battles had taken place. Archaeologists believe the two ships likely carried Swedish Vikings who met their end while attacking the Osilians. So that was pretty dope. Second fact that you may not know about the Vikings: Latvian Vikings were known as the last pagans. And the word pagan really, I remember that even just watching the Vikings, and I believe the last kingdom too. Another tribe of fierce Viking warriors, the Curonians, lived along the Baltic coastline of modern-day Latvia starting around the 5th century CE. The Curonians were referred to as Europe's last pagans since they resisted all attempts to convert to Christianity long after neighboring nations did so. By some accounts, they practiced ancient rituals until the 19th century. They frequently raided Swedish settlements and attacked merchant ships, often forming alliances with other groups, including the nearby Osilians. So definitely goes more into that fact. So, the third fact, you might not know, Vikings established the Kingdom of Dublin, which I felt was really dope. I just remember when I was stationed in Colorado and I came across, they have I want to say it's like a bar or slash restaurant, but I think it might be called the Dublin Bar, but just these different names that you may not think too much of, but then fast forward, like if you become more of a historian or more into history and learning about history, then it's like, okay, it's dope. You know what I mean? So it's Ireland once contained many wealthy monasteries since it had been a Christian nation for about 3 centuries before the first Vikings' arrival late in the 8th century CE. At first, the Vikings are either traded with or marauded Irish monasteries and set up temporary camps. Around 840 CE, they established a year-round settlement and built a wooden fort called a Long Fort along the River Liffey bank in modern-day Dublin. The Vikings used the settlement as a base to raid inland settlements and obtain timber to build ships. Over the next 3 centuries, they formed alliances and fought battles with local rulers, establishing the Kingdom of Dublin. Dublin became a strategic and bustling trading port and one of the longest lasting Viking settlements outside Scandinavia. Salute, salute. It goes into a little bit more of that particular fact as well. So, and then I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna drop the link to this article. So if y'all wanna, in y'all spare time, read it for yourselves, you could do that. I want to say this is number 4. Normandy is named for the Vikings. So I'm sure a lot of people probably didn't know that. According to medieval Latin documents, Normandy, a province in northwestern France, is named for the Vikings that pillaged, plundered, and later settled here beginning around 790 CE. The Latin name for them was not Manny, which means men of the north. Defenseless monasteries were often their first targets, and a Danish Viking expedition even sailed up the Seine River to raid and occupy Paris in 845 CE. After a French king ceded land to him in 911 CE, a Viking leader named Rollo established a permanent settlement in the region, which became known as the Duchy of Normandy. The Normandy territory expanded over the next several hundred years as Scandinavian Vikings colonized the area. They eventually gave up their paganism for Christianity and integrated into society. Before I continue, so this is a crazy piece, and mind you, this is the first time that I'm actually reading this article. I haven't read it before, but I just seen the title. I'm big on titles and headlines, but I also I love this website, this interesting facts website. So, but I'm watching the Vikings join now, and King Canute. So King Canute, I ain't gonna give no spoiler alerts, but I know with King Canute, I just recall him meeting with, I think it's the Pope, in reference to a conversation about something, in reference to them going from paganism to Christianity. So I feel like that has something to do with this regarding what they put in there, so, which is pretty dope. So Rollo's descendants built a stronghold, and later around 927 CE, a palace of Fecam, which you can visit today. Fecam overlooks a protected harbor, the likely site where Rollo first came ashore, making it easy to visualize a fleet of Viking ships bobbing on anchors. Number 5, Vikings settled Iceland. Unsurprisingly, when these medieval seafaring raiders invaded an area, they encountered resistance from the indigenous populations. I might even say that incorrect. Populations, but when Norwegian Vikings arrived in Iceland in 870 CE, the only inhabitants they found were a small group of Irish monks who left soon after. The Vikings discovered Iceland by accident, which they were blown off course during storms. And I remember the first time the Vikings joint came on the first season, I forget my boy name, man, but he's basically considered one of the greatest salesmen, I want to say, when it came to just him traveling, one of the greatest travelers, but he was a beast with that. So I remember peeping that joint. But it was a crazy storm that he was going through. One word reached Norway that Iceland was open for the taking. Settlers descended on the island, bringing with them enslaved peoples from the British Isles. DNA, the testing and genealogy studies have shown that early Icelanders were about half Norse from Norway and Sweden, and half Gaelic from Ireland and Scotland. And then it continues on from there. By 930 CE, the settlers had divided Iceland into 36 principalities, etc., etc. So it's pretty dope. I think that word is either indigenous or ingenious or ingenious. Remember the enunciation of that joint. Indigenous, I think. And the last fact of this article, Greenland's Vikings disappeared. And that Viking I was thinking of, Eric. And his father is called Eric the Red. You know what I mean? So, and I believe he's a Greenlander. You know what I'm saying? So me seeing this fact is like, okay, this is gonna be interesting to kind of peep. A Norwegian Viking known as, what did I just say? A Norwegian Viking known as Eric the Red. And mind you, I just, my first time reading this article, let me preface that and this disclaimer, like I haven't even read. I read the titles of the things you may not know, but I didn't read any of the verbiage after, you know what I'm saying? So, a Norwegian Viking known as Eric the Red was the first European to settle in Greenland in 983 CE. 2 years later, he led an expedition of Icelandic settlers to Greenland about 900 miles away. The settlers established two communities, the East Settlement near present-day Qaqortoq and the West Settlement near Nuuk. For the next 300 years or so, the settlers successfully farmed, fished, raised cattle, and hunted caribou, seals, walruses, polar bears, and other Arctic animals. However, Greenland couldn't provide all the resources such as timber and iron they needed, so Greenlanders relied on trade with European nations. During this time, Europeans began importing ivory, which they used to decorate churches and make chess pieces and other trinkets. Greenland's walrus population was plentiful at the time, and Greenlanders collaborated in groups to hunt walruses for their skins and tusks. The island nation's success was mostly due to a bustling ivory trade. Then a series of events in the 13th century led to the demise of the Greenland's Viking settlements, so on and so forth. So I ain't gonna finish that joint up. But yeah, so those are the 5 things that you may not know. Matter of fact, I think it was 6. Let me double check. 6 things. So 6 things you might not know or you may not have known about Vikings. So if you're a Viking fan like myself, you know, may have found, hopefully you found this information pretty interesting. So like I mentioned, I'm gonna put it down below in the description. Make sure you check it out, man. So continue to tap in with me. I appreciate y'all. Definitely like, subscribe to the channel, of course. Fuego Talk 101. And then of course, if you got somebody that you may know that may find this information interesting, go ahead and share this with them as well. And as always, you know, Fuego Talk, I let it spark in the middle of the ocean. We watch for the sharks. Y'all be blessed.